Anyone have any bills? Seeing none, move on to considerations of the omnibus items. I'd like to also remind everyone that we're doing the confirmation hearing at 10:30, and to bring your packets so we can turn them in. Okay, the items that we had left from yesterday, on page 9, under commerce, the grant program. And basically, this bill is passed, and so we just need to okay the amount of money. And I think there were some questions yesterday. Who had the question? Senator Alley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the question on that was under item A, and that's the Engineering Graduate Incentive Program. Is there a duplication? I think that's what we're looking for yesterday on that engineering program. And then the other question that came up was who under this program qualifies for this funding?
Okay. Charday, do you mind answering those questions for us, please?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Okay. The program is for the universities and the private colleges, and it is a duplicate in the Board of Regents on that $500,000 that you talked about yesterday morning. And remind me of the last question that you asked.
Senator Alley.
You just said all the colleges and universities qualify, private colleges and universities.
Yes, there are 3 universities that qualify. I can look that up really quick if you want me to.
Right. And no, that's, yeah. The only thing is they can't just start an engineering program. I thought that's what you said yesterday. It had to be an existing program.
That is correct.
And this, you said, is duplicated with commerce, right?
Yes, based on a conversation with the Board of Regents yesterday, this is a duplication of Board of Regents item E on page 28. So the item E is 500,000. The House Bill 2292 has a maximum of 1.5 million.
Senator McGinn.
So does that mean we just strike it since it's a duplicate?
Pardon me?
We should strike it because it's a duplicate?
One or the other, yes.
I mean, because the other one has the full amount. This is, well, it does, okay, not to exceed the 5 million thereafter.
Senator Petty.
Yeah.
Is it on page 9? Is that a continuing program? Or I should say.
Said as a duplicate.
Mr. Chair, to
Yes,
my
sir.
understanding, this is a new program. This is a bill that just passed into law yesterday, and it would be a new fund, to my understanding.
And the 500,000, which also is new, but the 500,000 is, it was, it has, seems to have different parameters, and that was open to, I suddenly can't find it on page 29.
Page 28, item E.
Was for recruitment and retention, but to be used for recruitment and retention, but I don't believe the 1.5, that was just for grants for engineering students. So are they the same or?
Based on a conversation that I've had with the Board of Regents, it is the same. So I am not sure about the parameters of what the original request was for the 500,000. Someone else may be able to speak to that, but as far as the 1.5 million that is in House Bill 2292, it does not state anything specific about recruitment.
Why don't we have Brianna come up, because I think that we're kind of crossing over on both of you, are we not?
Good morning.
Good morning, Brianna.
So from my understanding, up until recently, they were separate programs. This had come up, I think, in my budget committee, and we had talked about adding this addition, specifically because we were talking about Benedictine College. So based on what Charday has said, if that's what the Board of Regents has said, then if we're going up based off what the agency says, then they're the same program. But that was not my understanding previously.
So as far as the funding, they're two different amounts. So is this something that needed to be funded by both in order to get it fully funded? Or if we eliminate one or the other, or what kind of issues are we causing there?
I think the decision is if you guys just want to keep the funding that you have. I'm not sure, since there was a limit, if we could do that, or if you want to delete it and then just keep whatever Commerce has at this point.
Okay, Senator Masterson.
Thing, Mr. Chair, and the way I'm hearing and reading this, because this bill authorized, really, it's 5 million. It's not 1.5. If you read it, it's up to 5 million, which it'll be 5 million for this purpose. And if the board sees it to be duplicative, that means 500,000 of that 5 million would be used under this authorization for this purpose. That's the duplication. Am I stating that incorrectly? $5 million is put towards engineering programs in this bill, and 500,000 of that
Is dedicated.
appropriation be used for that purpose, the way I'm reading this, if that's correct.
Does that sound right to you, Brianna?
From the original intent, yes.
Thank you. Okay, so Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Did you say this was a new fund or a new funding, this 1.5 million?
I think
Or
from
maybe she had said that.
Charday, yes, I think she said that was
Okay.
new funding.
Is this a new fund?
Yes.
It is a new fund, because I know one thing I've been trying to do, slow down on new funding. But I do think the 500,000 is going to be taken care of in this thing, so I don't think we really need to worry about it as we go forward.
Okay. Any other questions for Brianna or Charday? Okay. So committee, I guess what we're doing then, we're authorizing the 5 million, and then the others taken care of. It's already being taken out of that 5 million. So is everyone comfortable with the 5 million? Okay. Anybody against it? Seeing none? Okay, we're going to do it. Thank you. The next item that I had on my list was on page 13. And it had to do with the state banking commissioner. And I did receive information that everyone has agreed to the language in an MOU, and so that's taken care of. We can go ahead and fund that. So everyone okay with funding the State Bank Commission? Okay. Pardon me? Yeah. So we look at, that's number A, and then B. Okay, we did the rest of them, okay. Got two different sheets, and the one I grabbed didn't have it on it. So that takes care of that item. The next item I show is on page 31. And we had discussion yesterday, and I guess, who do we have on this, and Dylan? Okay. Yesterday, we had some questions on the Kansas State University biomanufacturing program and the ag innovation. Thank you, Brianna. Sorry that we're bouncing around here. I just had my list and I'm going down it, so I apologize. Yesterday, we were trying to determine the consideration of the 25 million SGF for the biomanufacturing program. Did you get any additional information on, there was questions on the land grant promise scholarship expansion? And I don't know, remember which one of the members had that particular question, but.
I do have information on that. So there was, Sue Peterson is available to talk about those things if you would like, so she
Oh,
can
yes.
speak on those things.
Yes, I didn't know she was available.
But the land grant promise scholarship, there was a little misprint in our documents. The request that they have is for the ag innovation and other strategic interdisciplinary programs. So not necessarily for the land grant scholarship, but she will talk about those programs.
Okay, and she is here? Okay. Sue, would you, oh, I didn't see you back there. Doing a good job of hiding.
Will you email the president and tell him I'm here? I'm Sue Peterson from Kansas State. Hang on here. So where would you like me to go first, sir?
Well, we were discussing this yesterday, and I guess the questions were around that land grant promise, but Brianna just said it's the ag innovation. So you might just kind of tell us what we're looking at here.
So I don't have the ag innovation in front of me, but I could maybe go from memory and Brianna can help me fill in. But land grant promise real quickly is privately funded. There's a program called the Veneer Family Scholarship. I happen to be a donor to that, so I know the details of that program. So you give $30,000. It's matched one-to-one dollars by the Veneer family through the K-State Foundation. The yield is a $1,000 scholarship on an annual basis. What we did was use that private funds to fund that. There's 195 students who've done that. It's in those 10 counties that Senator Petty read off yesterday, because that's the agreement with the foundation, and that's the money they have put forward to that. If it were further funded, we would expand it. Be nice to be statewide, but we would expand it as far as we could get it based on the funding.
So how was the 10 counties determined to begin with?
I asked that question, and they said that was because the family lives in that area. That's how they kind of chose those counties as a place to start.
So it was because of the matching part?
Because of the matching part, that is correct.
Questions for Senator Fagg?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sue, has the state ever funded any of that program?
They have never funded this program, no, sir, they have.
Okay, so this would be new funding.
New funding to a currently privately funded program, correct.
Senator McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess what I don't understand is if you give 30,000, this family will give a dollar for dollar match.
Correct.
Why all of a sudden now are we asking for SGF money?
I think what happened last fall when the budget request went in to the Kansas Board of Regents and ultimately then to the governor was a packet of funding for student aid, and you have addressed some of that. You've got the comp grant money that has been added to. You have the new program. There's a student aid program for 20 million. I think Kansas State was just looking at aid programs that would support students coming to Kansas State. So at that time, those dollars were asked for.
Other questions? Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm just trying to catch up here because the bottom two items under there, those were in the budget bill, right? And not line items, so that money's assigned to be appropriated. We're just looking at those top two that were not included. Were they requested early? Were they stricken in conference or just this brand new conversation?
So, Mr. Chairman,
Please.
I believe the land grant promise kind of never was on the list to come back to. I believe it was another item that the university had asked for 4 items as enhancements. The governor funded 1. And so I think what the committee did, if I recall correctly, and I don't want to speak for the chair or our budget chair, that they put those items on the list and said, let's review that. He said omnibus. And the other 2 items, the biomanufacturing, $5 million was recommended by Governor Kelly's budget and it was funded. And then the $5 million for K-State 105 was funded as well.
Senator McGinn.
I guess, I hope we're not setting precedents that we're going to start using SGF for individual scholarships that people set up. And
The question.
so do you know, is there anything else that's been out there like this? Or is this kind of new?
Off the top of my head, Senator, I do know that, for example, you were just discussing engineering, and engineering, the state pays the portion, and that's used for some scholarships, and there's clearly a lot of privately funded scholarships that support those, that enhance that, and that's a one-to-one match as well for those engineering dollars.
Senator Petty.
And I don't want to stray from necessarily from the land grant promise scholarship, but the next item, the biodevelopment module, that isn't in the budget.
That is accurate.
And so could you provide us a little more information about that?
So we asked for some information, and we specifically, Brianna asked the question, why are the 2 different? So I can tell you that the 2 differences between what you've already funded for biomanufacturing, which is in the budget and requires a 1-to-1 match. That was the governor's requirement. Biologics development module was a completely different setup, if you will. That is to build out space that currently exists in the Biosecurity Research Institute, which is next door to MBAF, the National Bio and Agro Defense Facility. It's next door to that. And specifically, they want to recruit private sector companies, I'm going to read for a minute, in pharmaceutical, human or animal, and related fields to establish pilot pharmacology plant that K-State has built into the Biosecurity Research Institute. So it would be finishing out the space, buying equipment, and allowing then companies to come in and do this work that we have already started or that they have started and want to finish. There is a biodevelopment module in the MBAP, but it is, the federal government owns it, and it's not going to be, no one's going to be allowed in there but federal government employees. Not going to be used for companies.
So this would be to attract for-profit companies?
Correct.
That are either in Kansas or attract them to Kansas?
Correct.
Thank you.
And then having that space where they could do the work, they wouldn't build their plant, they could come to Kansas, hire employees, rent the space. It's a fee-for-service facility.
Thank you.
Other questions? Committee, what is Senator Masterson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I shared some of the concerns that Senator McGinn had on that first one anyway, of using private dollars, and I would not recommend that.
Everyone okay with that? Okay, so we won't recommend the first one. How about the second one? Senator Fag.
I'd written pass. I thought we talked about that yesterday already. Am I reading this wrong?
Pass over.
Yeah.
Pass over, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Senator Petty.
We seem to have, over the last couple of years, taken a position of looking to ways to attract entrepreneurs and businesses to Kansas and also to help those that are here to grow. And I know it's a different sphere, but it did remind me of Wichita State and what they've done as far as attracting and offering opportunities. This is in a different, of course, a totally different area. To me, it seems to have great potential.
Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I apologize, I missed a considerable amount of time yesterday, and I don't know what all happened, but in the vein of kind of parity, this does seem like this 10 would be appropriate to include for this initiative and be comfortable with it. Yeah, it's one time, right?
Everyone in agreement? Okay, we'll go ahead and fund that one. Okay, let's see. Next item I have is on page 32. And this would be Pittsburgh States. And Brianna, I can't remember, we discussed these yesterday, and I think there might have been a few particular questions. Committee members remember any particular questions on these 3 items?
I have information on those requests. I can give you what I've been given so we can figure that out.
Please do so.
The first one that I have on my paper is that 2 million for the Global Center for STEM. So within this request, there is the Midwest Center for Reading. And so that is funding and expanding intervention and outreach and increase statewide awareness of dyslexia and emphasis on improving teacher preparation and professional development in science and reading. The state investment will substantially expand the scope and capacity of the center to create relationships statewide with families, educators, administrators, and other professionals. And then also within that is the Center for Advancement of Computational Issues. This center is focused on research and outreach for statewide emphasis on education, training, support development, recruitment, and retention of computer science-related research professionals. So one part is computer-based, and then the other part is to expand research for dyslexia.
Questions for Brianna? Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are these also one-time appropriations for expansion?
I believe so, yes.
All right, thank you. Then
There always is.
So these are one-time spends. However, there would be operational costs in the future, and they might come back for additional asks on this. But right now, the other one-time, other than there will be ongoing operational costs in the future. So, Senator Petty.
On the second one, the National Micropolitan Studies Program, so it's centered specifically on smaller urban core initiatives, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And it looks like they also, Pittsburgh State also feels that this will help them to attract more federal funds as well.
In research projects, yes.
Thank you.
Do you mind talking about this item, Brianna, and then also the next one? That way we all have information and
Sure. So the micropolitan areas are considered small urban core of more than 10,000, but less than 50,000 in population, along with closely tied counties. The core cities of a micropolitan area provide citizens access to businesses, public services not readily available in the more rural counties. So because of the geographic location of Pitt State, they're trying to support the economic prosperity of the region and to attract students and support continued growth of research. Like Senator Petty said, for federal funding and basic applied research grants. So this is just a program to try and grow economic prosperity. In the universities using this program as a tool. So the bottom one is the NEMA prove-out facility. So that's what the conference committee had already added. So this is a facility that's 200,000 square feet for local regional partners and entrepreneurs to assist moving conceptual products from proof of concept to pilot scale within the research center housed at Pittsburgh State.
Right, that was already funded, so
Yes,
thank you.
correct.
So committee, we're looking at the others. Senator Maston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are in somewhat of a unique situation with the amount of money for this one-time investment that we're doing, that we're looking at. I mean, the governor's had her own suggestions. So I think it'd be appropriate to go ahead and leave these in since they're one-time.
Everyone in agreement? Anyone opposed? Okay, Brianna, we okay that one? Both of them? Okay. I guess the last item. 28? Okay. Page 28.
My stuff.
Okay, it's the comprehensive line item veto on the comprehensive grant. Brianna, if you would go over that really quickly, we'd appreciate it. Be number B.
Yes. So currently, as it stands, with the 50-50 split, the private and independent colleges, which is 6% of the population, would be receiving funds just at the same or equal amount as the Regents University. So the language here was to stricken that so that it would, because I believe before, and I'll double check, it was 48%. There was a percentage that was a little off so that the private and independent colleges were receiving a little bit more. So I believe this language it was stricken is so that it would go back to 50-50, but the issue being that the privates would receive this same amount as the universities who have more students.
Brianna, thank you. Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After I read that yesterday and had time to digest that, some of that kind of talked about like there's this cutting funding for students have already been awarded scholarships. So that one hit me kind of funny. So I kind of questioned the wording on that whole thing. But what I'd like to say is this grant is the only funds of our 20 private colleges that get from the state from others for their students. Regents has around $1 billion to work with in the governor's budget and approximately $100 million new money this year. Last year, the legislators went to $35 million for three good reasons. One was a one-to-one match from the colleges to go out and do some fundraising that doubled our scholarships. It saved the taxpayer around $9 million, and there was no new programs because there was one that was presented and we put the money and that's why it grew. So after we went home, after the last session, the Regents had a meeting and changed the percentage of public versus private college funding for this grant. In 2022, it was 49 public, 51 private. In 2023, it was changed to 64 public, 36 private. This grant was created in 1999 and the private colleges have always received the highest percentage of this one grant. The only exception was in 2011 when it was 50-50. So to me, to do the right thing, the Senate position this year, to correct that, we went 4.8 million to the private, and then the balance was to be split. That went to conference. I wasn't aware of what went on in conference, but on page 147 of the conference, it went into detail. And basically, they went back to a 50-50 split, or to what the 2022 fiscal year distribution was, which was 49 public, 51 private. So where I'm coming from, I think the right thing to do is to override this veto.
Senator Matterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we're just kind of the posture of this, since it's in a House bill, right? The budget bill is a House bill. Will be dependent on whether or not the House sends it to us, right? They'll take up their veto overrides tomorrow and Thursday morning, and then if it comes to us, that'll be a decision to make then. And quite frankly, if they can't override it, for us to stick it back in, you'd expect the same result. So that's kind of the posture we're in, just for everybody's.
Did you have Senator Alley?
With that said, we'll have to wait for what the House does. However, I believe we have to go back to what the original agreement was, and it basically was 50-50. And to make that change without legislature approval, I think that's the reason that this all started in the first place. So I would say if we can override the veto, 50-50 is what we need to be.
Okay, so this item then we won't do any action on because we'll wait for the veto, okay? Okay, and I think that's all I had on my list.
Chairman, yesterday we skipped over item M for the 700,000 for the Heroes Act scholarship. So I wasn't, or were we passing on it to pass, or were we going to review today?
What page are you on?
29.
29, okay, and what letter?
Letter M.
N, okay. Mary, okay. Thank you, I did have that marked. So would you like to explain a little about that, a little additional information?
So the 700,000 is for the HERO Act scholarship, also known as the tuition waiver. So this is an investment for eligible dependents of spouses and certain deceased or disabled public safety, public office, or military personnel to enroll in higher education with no charge to tuition fees. So I think there was some confusion yesterday about if it was in another bill or if it was not, but this is independently separate, and this is with the Board of Regents.
Does this one have to do with the 911? Isn't that when this started, or I would think I was told that this program started after 911, and that's basically why it was for, public safety and public officers and that type thing.
I'm not.
You don't? Okay.
Not sure when it was started.
Okay. Questions for Brianna? No questions for Brianna? Or Senator Fagg?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this new funding, again, on scholarship, or is this one that's already been in place?
This one's been in place.
So do you know how much is currently going in there, and how we're adding 700,000? So what are we adding 700,000 to?
I would have to go back and look because I don't have my BA with me. Yeah, I would have to go back and look.
Okay. Senator Petty.
Sorry. Would it be because they've had more requests for the use of this Heroes Act scholarship, and so they want expanded funding to be able to address those requests? Thank you.
Other questions? Brianna, do you know on this scholarship Evidently, this is something we fund every year, correct?
Yes.
And is this the same amount then possibly that we've been doing for the last few years? Okay, so it's not really an addition. After I asked you that, I got to thinking that maybe this is just what we've been doing every year, so
Correct.
that would make more sense. You do? It does say additional, so,
I think the request for each year has been about the same from what I've seen previous years. They've asked for the same amount last year and then this year for the same scholarship.
well, I guess if, you know, it's kind of the way I remembered it. Just been told that that number is rather regularly pretty flat. So it's give or take just a few dollars, but this is something that we fund every year. Senator Fag?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm okay with it, with the history that we have to it, so.
Everyone okay with funding this? Okay, thank you. Brianna, before you go, did you have anything else on your list that I might have possibly missed?
It's always good to clarify. Let me make sure.
I'm getting a thumbs up from everyone back here, so I think maybe Senator Alley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to review on K, just to clarify on page 29. That was the add of 46 million SGF for talent pipeline. But there was one part that was funded by the conference committee, and that's the 3.8 SGF for the CTE capital outlay. Is that still in there, or that's the question?
Chairman, it is still in there. The 3.8 million went into HB 2184.
Okay. It is, yes. Any other questions, or does anyone else have anything marked on their sheet that we possibly missed? But Senator McGinn.
There was a comment made yesterday about the House's problem with the CEO of Envision. And I didn't know if we were going to get more information about that, or it's just a comment, or.
I think we went ahead and okayed that yesterday.
We did.
We did. 200, yes.
200,000.
They had requested 4. We had, our subcommittee had suggested the 2, so.
So we must have come back to that, because that's all I heard was.
Right.
Thank you.
Anything else? Senator Sykes.
Thank you. I would be remiss if I did not bring up again, I think yesterday with the governance GBA number 2, I think we should look at the education budget. It's my understanding that there is another shell out there that has been called for a conference, but we do not have any of our special ed funding, and we are tying our funding with, in my opinion, bad policy. And if it is the will of this body, it would pass that policy without adding it to the funding. And I think we've put ourselves in a very bad place of putting policy with funding. So just needed to make that statement that we are doing Kansas a disservice by not adding more than half of our budget in this budget bill.
I was just pointed out that the Envision we did pass over yesterday. So Senator McGinn, you were right. That we did not okay that. I thought we had, but so.
I guess I thought we were going to have more discussion. I just think it's interesting. We're talking about programming And on one hand, I mean, that was the request, and then all of a sudden, we're talking about the CEO's salary. And I'm like, are we going to fund program for people that have, blind disabilities? Or are we going to talk about how much the board pays the CEO? I don't know. Did the House put it back in yesterday? Okay, that's what.
And I thought we did too, but I was wrong. We passed on it. We didn't okay it. And so it's on page 6, towards the bottom. Center alley.
I agree. I think that we need to keep that Senate position and add the $200,000 SGF for that. I'd make that motion.
Motion and a second. Is there any questions? Senator Petty?
So the motion is to maintain the Senate position. Thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Are we good, you think, now? Okay. I think we've got the list handled, but if not, I guess we'll get together again. But with that committee, I guess, with no other questions, Senator Petty.
So I want to mention this because I mean, it's been hung up because it's in the K-12 Education Policy Committee, and that's the funding for parents as teachers. That's the $300,000. We talked about this in the past. We didn't do anything because it's in the education, or its discussion is saying it's in the education budget, but I would certainly hope that the Senate would take a position of support of parents as teachers. This additional funding helps with expansion of that program further throughout our state of Kansas. And if we really, we continue to talk about how important education is and the growth of our families in Kansas, and parents as teachers is certainly one of those ways to help strengthen our families. So I don't know if that means we could take a position that we support it, but I wanted to bring that back up, and I hate to think the fact that we have to continually talk about it because it's in the education budget, which we don't have.
Any other comments or questions? Senator Maston.
Quick question, Mr. Chairman. So we just recessing for 10 minutes because we're still doing the hearing?
Hearing's at 10:30, yes. We were hoping to be done, and we are. Okay, committee, we're going to recess for 10 minutes, and we'll do the confirmation at 10:30. Thank you. Sorry. At this time, we will have a confirmation hearing on the Kansas Adjutant General, General Michael Venerdi from Topeka. I guess at this time, we would ask the general if he would please come up to the podium. Good morning and welcome to our committee. And I think all of our committee members have your appointment sheet, and we will just ask some questions here, or unless you would like to start out with a little overview.
If I may.
That would be great.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair, ranking members, and members of the committee. I'm Brigadier General Mike Venerdi, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to appear before you in support of my confirmation for the position of Adjutant General. I would like to recognize my wife of 23 years, Valerie, who is with me today, our 19-year-old son, Luke, and our 22-year-old daughter, Blakely, for fully supporting me throughout my career. Valerie has worked in education and more recently as a contractor working with the Small Business Administration. Luke is a sophomore at Washburn University and recently enlisted in the Kansas Air National Guard as a cyber warfare operator. Blakely completed her bachelor's degree at Clemson University in South Carolina last May and will graduate with her master's program in applied health research and evaluation there next month. Val and I are very proud of the great adults they have become. The opportunity to serve at a higher level would not have been possible without the unyielding love and support of my family. I want to take this opportunity to thank them for all they do and have done in supporting me and my career. As for my story, I'm the son of a proud 30-year United States Navy sailor and Spanish mother. I spent much of my time in my formative years in different countries, Panama, Venezuela, Spain, and gained an appreciation for cultures and practices that are distinct from our own. I would also like to thank them for the values and work ethic they instilled in me. My military career began when I was commissioned as an officer through the United States Air Force Academy in 1991. Following flight school in Texas, I was stationed at March Air Force Base, California, where I was a supply officer for 3 years. Getting back into flying, I was moved to the United Kingdom and then back stateside to McConnell Air Force Base, Kansas. I arrived in Kansas in November of 1998 and realized then that this was the place where I wanted to settle down and raise a family. I sometimes say that I arrived in Kansas by chance, but stayed by choice. I left active duty in August 2001 to fly with the Air Force Reserve at McConnell Air Force Base. In September of 2002, my flying experience provided me the opportunity to transition to the Fighting Jayhawks of the Kansas Air National Guard, and I took it. The unit was transitioning from the mighty B-1B Lancer to the KC-135 Stratotanker, and they needed fully qualified instructor pilots like myself. In 2006, I stepped away from flying and stepped into the world of intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. I've held myriad command opportunities with the 184th Wing at the lieutenant colonel and colonel levels, to include commanding the wing from 2018 to 2020. Before taking command of the 184th, I had the opportunity to work at Headquarters NORAD and United States Northern Command in Colorado Springs for 2 years. My last duty assignment as the Director of the Joint Staff for the Kansas National Guard, I served in this capacity from April 2020 until replacing our former Adjutant General, Major General David Weissar, on April 1st of this year. Congratulations to him on an incredibly successful 42-year military career. From working in logistics to flying combat aircraft in multiple campaigns to supporting joint and combined forces in hotspots across the globe with intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capabilities. My career has been shaped by the willingness and opportunity to step in outside of my comfort zone and lead in some new endeavor or mission set. This past 3 years have been busy for the Kansas National Guard. Some missions including assisting with flood response, fighting wildland fires, performing myriad operations in support of the COVID response, to include vaccinations, supporting the 2021 presidential inauguration, and most importantly, carrying out our federal missions overseas. As the Adjutant General, I am responsible for 3 distinct portfolios. I serve as the Director for the Kansas Division of Emergency Management, as Homeland Security Advisor, and lastly, as the military head of the Kansas National Guard. Additionally, the Civil Air Patrol and Kansas Star Base fall under the Adjutant General's department. Collectively, we all serve in what seems to be a continuous and ever-increasing demand signal. We can never be late to need in answering it. Whether we're talking about the home game or the away game, there is simply too much at risk. I have complete faith that the Kansas Division of Emergency Management team will stand ready, as always, to answer the call when state or national resources are requested during an incident response. I know that the team in Kansas Homeland Security, specifically the Kansas Intelligence Fusion Center, will continue working hard to defend Kansas against terrorism, foreign malign influence, and vulnerabilities to complex system, thus ensuring the protection of life, economic security, and individual freedoms. Finally, I'm keenly aware of the amazing capabilities the Kansas National Guard ceaselessly trains to deliver. I expect them to continue to challenge themselves as they think and train through the application of those capabilities in austere, degraded, disconnected, and highly contested environments. I look forward to continuing to serve the men and women of the Adjutant General's Department, the state of Kansas, and our nation. Thank you for your time, and I stand ready to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, General, and thank you and your family for your service. I really, it's cool to see your children here. That's really good. Committee questions, Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not really a question, just thank you for your service. You've come very highly recommended from a mutual friend, retired Colonel Eric Vitosh, who I've known for 30 years now. So as soon as I saw you had been stationed with him, that I checked, I'm texting with him right now just to say, I sent him a picture of you. So anyway, I just want to say thank you, appreciate it, and look forward to having you take this post.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for being here today. We appreciate it. Recognize Senator Masterson.
Mr. Chairman, I move the committee refer this favorably to the floor.
Motion is second by Senator Alley. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations. Committee, that concludes our work for today. So with that, we are adjourned. Yes, please hand your packets.